Now, you might be wondering, okay, scalable entrepreneurship is great, but can entrepreneurship actually be taught? Of course, I believe scalable entrepreneurship can actually be taught. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been teaching it for the last 19 years. But I think it's obvious that it can be taught. Because why? The argument for why, let's examine the argument for why entrepreneurship might not be able to be taught. The argument goes something like, entrepreneurship, there are many successful entrepreneurs that didn't learn entrepreneurship and therefore they didn't need to be taught. Of course, that's not a good argument for that entrepreneurship could not be taught, because we don't know how much better or faster those entrepreneurs might have succeeded if they had learned about entrepreneurship. Also, the fact that some people are able to succeed without learning entrepreneurial skills doesn't mean that you're going to be able to succeed without learning entrepreneurial skills. But I would break it down even further and say what people, I think, really mean when they say question about whether entrepreneurship can be taught. They're trying to make a distinction between talent and skills. So talent are, in my definition, are capabilities that people are born with, and skills are the capabilities that people develop later after they're born through training. So if you're going to believe that entrepreneurship cannot be taught, you're going to have to claim that actually talent is the key to success in entrepreneurship. And I think that's not the case. I don't believe that talent is the key to success in any endeavor where both talent and skills contribute to success. Why? Let's use an example from sports. On this slide, you can see Tiger Woods, who's one of the most successful golfers in our lifetime, and definitely, obviously, one of the most talented golfers, I think, ever to play professional golf, because he was an accomplished golfer as a small child and already getting scores as a small child that many people never even reach as adults. And this, to me, suggests that he was born with a tremendous amount of talent that could be applied to golf. But that's not what made him the best golfer of his generation alone. Because why? All top golfers have tremendous amount of talent. Otherwise, they wouldn't get to the high levels in golf. But what do highly talented golfers spend, even highly talented professional golfers spend most of their time doing what? Training with a coach. Why? Because they're developing their skills. In the end, no matter what level of talent you begin something with, the level of development of your skills will determine whether you succeed or not. So if the most highly talented people in the world still focus on skills development, I think we can see that skills development is critical to success in any endeavor that requires both talent and skill. It's the same with entrepreneurship. I talked about qualities that successful entrepreneurs might have, but those qualities alone will not make you successful. What will make you successful is starting with whatever level of talent you have, developing entrepreneurial skills that you can apply to the very difficult task of creating a successful, scalable business is the key to success. And how can we develop entrepreneurial skills? I think another question that people have about why whether entrepreneurship can be taught or not is they are actually thinking about the method of learning entrepreneurship. So embedded in that question is, can we really learn to be entrepreneurs from reading books or listening to people talk about entrepreneurship? And I would tend to agree with that. There's only so much we can learn about entrepreneurship from reading or listening to lectures. Therefore, in my course and my experience, the best way to learn entrepreneurship is through experiential learning. This is learning through doing. So in my classes, you will simulate the process of becoming a successful scalable entrepreneur, starting with the 3 steps that we talked about before. You will develop a business idea, form a team, and present that idea to a panel of investors. This type of simulation learning has proven very effective in tasks or in things that you do that require this mix of talent and skill. It's examples when you learn to play piano. You don't just read endless books about music theory. You sit down at the piano with a teacher. You start to play. The teacher observes your playing and corrects you. And you do that again and again and again. Same thing with swimming. You learn to swim not by reading many books about fluid dynamics, but by being put in the swimming pool with a coach or teacher. Starting at the shallow end, you learn to float, then you learn to tread water, ultimately you learn to swim. And this is the way that you can learn to become a successful, scalable entrepreneur. So some examples of successful, scalable entrepreneurs from very well-known companies. So Mark Zuckerberg from Facebook, who when he started Facebook was no older than my typical undergraduate class students. 19 years old, launches the first version of the product while he's still studying in university. Starts with a very small $10,000 investment. We call this friends and family money. Then raises the first round of venture capital from Peter Thiel, who's very well-known Silicon Valley investor, for $500,000. Later in the course, we're going to talk about why $500,000. We're going to see that the first investment from external investors in many scalable startups is around $500,000, and there's good reason for that. It's not coincidence. Then after several years of venture funding, the company went to an IPO in 2012, and since then has increased tremendously in value to become one of the most valuable companies in the world. So this is, of course, Facebook, it's an outsized success, so it's a very carefully picked example, but it is an example of somebody who has trodden this path of scalable entrepreneurship from their undergraduate dorm to running one of the most successful and valuable companies in the world. This is another company you're probably familiar with, Instagram. And again, this was a company started by young entrepreneurs. And this was a great example of a company that pivoted very early. We'll talk later about pivoting in more detail. But a company that pivoted their product very early in the development of the company. Notice they raised a $500,000 seed funding round in their first venture round. Again, that number. And they grew the company very quickly, so scaled the company very quickly to a valuation of $1 billion within 2 years of founding. So this is a very fast result. And ultimately sold the company in a trade sale to Facebook. So we can see scalable entrepreneurs grow businesses to 2 primary ends or primary waypoints. One is IPO, like Facebook. 2 is trade sale, like Instagram, selling to Facebook. And this phenomenon did not start in the last few years with social media, or social networks. Google, again, one of the 5 most valuable companies in the world today, was started by young entrepreneurs who began with friends and family money, raised venture capital, and then grew their company to IPO stage and continued to generate tremendous shareholder value today as a company reaching almost $1 trillion in market cap. Another successful scalable startup, YouTube, which was purchased by Google from our previous slide. So again, we see IPO, trade sale, and many years ago, also founded by undergraduates, also growing through the scalable business route, and also exiting in IPOs to companies I'm sure you know, Dell and Microsoft. So this process has been creating successful businesses for many years, and Microsoft today also one of the 5 most valuable companies in